new pussycat. Welcome to my channel. My name is Emma Cownley. I'm a freelance copywriter and blogger, and today we're going to be addressing the age-old question: how do you manage the ebb and flow of freelance work? How do you strike that fine balance between panicking your ass off when there's absolutely nothing booked in and the meltdown-worthy overwhelm that comes with having way too much booked in and not enough hours in the day to get the work done? It's the curse of the freelancer. So today I thought I would go through some of the ways that I like to manage it, to give you some kind of inspiration of how you could try. If you're a freelancer and you have your own system for managing ebb and flow, do leave a comment below to help everyone out, just so that they've got a variety of different perspectives and options to try, because the way I do things might not work for you. And you might think that my advice is shit. So take it always with a grain of salt and move forward in a way that feels intuitive and good to you. As always, before I give up my gems of wisdom, I will ask you to do a little something for me. And there is a spectrum of ways in which you can repay me for my kindness. The first is to like this video. Maybe even go one step further and subscribe, especially if you've watched a few of these videos and you kind of like the cut of my jib, you want to see more from me. Amazing. Go ahead and subscribe. I'd love to have you. And the final boss level of showing appreciation to me is to make a donation on Ko-fi. I always leave a link in the description box below for you, just in case you want to buy me a pumpkin spiced latte, or if all else fails, a delicious espresso. And with all that said and done, let's move into the video. So my first piece of advice with regard to managing ebb and flow is to structure your business in such a way that it allows you to take on ad hoc work and exciting projects while still giving you a really stable base to build on. So the way I like to do this is to make sure I always have several client retainers every single month, so that I'm never ever starting my month at zero. I always know I'm gonna have, at least 2/3 of my income already accounted for, 2/3 of my time already accounted for. I can plot that out in my Trello board and understand where my time is going to go, and which deadlines are coming up, and kind of pipeline everything accordingly. And that makes it very easy for me to see where the spaces are in my schedule, just in case somebody else pops in. You can kind of gauge whether or not you're able to take that work on without overwhelming yourself, and if you are, and if it's worth it, where you can kind of shift your schedule around a little bit. And it just gives you a really good idea of how much available space there is and how much more revenue you need to get in for the month in order to hit your target, whereas also allowing you to start each month with kind of the bulk of your revenue and time already accounted for. So it's not just great for revenue and taking the pressure off, it's also great from a planning perspective. So I would recommend get some retainers on your books, get some retained clients. If you're not sure what that is or how to do it, I've made a video on it, which I'll link for you below. And I will also link a video to my Trello board so that you can see how I use Trello to pipeline my workload and plan my time. But yeah, that's just how I like to start. It gives me a nice baseline. I can see where there's spaces, I can see where the extra revenue needs to come from, and I can make the choice. Is this job worth doing the overtime for because it's a fucking sick project and I cannot afford to pass this up? Or is this maybe a little bit too much for me and maybe I'll need to get some help, or I'll need to turn the work down? So that's my first tip. Another humdinger, and I wrote about this last year on my blog, is to protect your business and your time with regard to project pushbacks. Now, this happened to me so heckin' bad. I think it was in 2019 or something. I had signed on to do a really big project. I was writing maybe 3 massive industry reports, and I was like, this is going to take a lot of time. I don't want to stress myself out. I know if there's a lot going on, I won't be able to focus on the work. So I cleared my schedule for however many weeks to make sure I would have time to dedicate myself to this project. Get to a week before the project and they're not quite ready for it, and they're going to push it back to next month. That meant that I had 3 weeks completely barren in my calendar. I'd turn down work because I thought I wouldn't be able to fit it in because I'd have this massive project. And what's worse is that my revenue was ridiculously low because I hadn't taken a 50% deposit up front for the work to kind of fill that hole in. And I know that if you are looking at your revenue in terms of quarters rather than months, that's not necessarily going to matter, but it does really fuck with your cash flow and really stress you out. So what I would recommend, if you're taking a large project, always get that 50% deposit and try to be a bit more pragmatic with regard to getting that work done, because I thought I was doing myself a favor by clearing my calendar, and it turned out I was actually royally fucking myself up. Perhaps if I'd been a bit more pragmatic with regard to how projects actually run, and in most cases they do usually run behind, timelines are very rarely exactly as they're pitched to you. They're often always behind schedule. And so if I'd kind of been a bit more relaxed about it, maybe I wouldn't have suffered as badly. So get that deposit, be a bit more kind of chill and pragmatic with regard to doing the work, because if that gets pushed back, you don't want to fuck yourself. And if it does get pushed back, you can always reach out to your community and say, hey, a project's been pushed back. I'm now available for the next 3 weeks. Who needs a hand with anything? Hit me up. And then either your freelance colleagues can get in touch with referrals or outsource to you, or any clients that have been eyeballing you could potentially get back in touch and commission work. I feel like I phrased that one really badly. My next point would be to know your limits and not overstretch yourself unless it's really fucking worth it. So I myself personally am not someone that deals very well with stress and pressure. I don't work well under pressure. I don't like working under pressure. I don't like being in environments where it's kind of go, 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 fast paced. It's not for me. I don't like it. I start to freak out. I get anxiety, and all of a sudden it cripples down on me and I have the worst writer's block, and I just can't. I can't work like that. So I'm always very careful to leave a day or a day and a half free in my week to account for amendments coming back in, or, projects running over. And I like to give myself that extra wiggle room just in case, because there's nothing worse than really stacking your week full of projects with tight deadlines because you might have writer's block that day. Something might happen. You might get an emergency amendment come back in that you need to spend an afternoon working on, and it really throws your entire week off. So you have to account for things like that. So just be aware of how much you can comfortably handle in your week. And that's where task pipelining comes in really handy. You kind of start to get a feel for how long each type of job will take you. Always build in extra time because you never know. And just kind of be conscious of how long things are taking you and how comfortable you feel in any given week, and try to maintain that consciously while leaving that extra space for amendments and last minute emergencies, just so that you're not stressing out or stacking up your week meticulously only to have, one thing happen and the whole thing compound, and you end up working overtime just to make those deadlines that you set yourself, which were unrealistic because you like to please people and you just... I'm not speaking from experience here. The next point is to remember that not every lead that comes in will come good. I'm very susceptible to this in myself, in that if I have quite a lot of inquiries at any given time, on top of a full workload, I start to freak out. And I'm like,
God, it's all happening. I can't manage it.
And I fail to take into account the fact that the people who are coming in with inbound inquiries now probably aren't going to be ready to start work for a month at least. Projects do get pushed back, and sometimes people will contact you who will ultimately not end up hiring you. So it's always good to take that with a grain of salt and be like, hey, we're not overbooked yet. Until I have that deposit, it's not a firm booking. Until I have that signature, it's not a firm booking. So at the moment, it feels like things are hectic and I'm piling a lot on my plate, but I'm not really, not until I have a confirmed booking. So just chill out, be cool. Emma, I'm talking to you in the future. If you're watching this back, you're all right, babe. Don't worry about it. Get the money and then we'll worry. And here's my final point, and it's probably to the detriment of this entire video because it's going to undo a lot of what I've literally just spent the last 15 minutes saying. And that is, when you're freelance, you have to learn to live with the ebb and flow of freelancing. If you have been booked to the fucking max for the last month, working overtime, cramming that shit in, everything's bonkers, and then all of a sudden it's crickets, maybe take that time to step back, look at your business, work on your stuff, maybe take an afternoon back because it all comes out in the wash, doesn't it? Think about how much overtime you just did. It's not the end of the world if you want to start late or take an afternoon off because it's quiet. You're entitled to do that because it's quiet. Start to put the feelers out for more business inquiries. Take that time to collect yourself, do a bit of business development, do a little bit of marketing for yourself, take some time back. Don't freak out. Use the time to chill out because you've probably already made the revenue that you feel like you're missing now. You've probably made double that in your busy period. So it's okay. Learn to lean into it and use the time productively for yourself, because I'm willing to bet that during busy times, your own blog posts or social media presence or whatnot has probably fallen by the wayside, and your bookkeeping, for example, and you could probably use a moment to regroup and reset yourself. So lean into it and embrace it. And I think also if you're finding yourself overbooked all the time and it's getting to be too much, you've got two options that you could consider. You could outsource to a trusted freelance colleague. Make sure it's someone that you know, you've seen the quality of your work, you've got a good relationship, you can draw up some kind of contract to protect the both of you, and you can kind of outsource to them. Or you could consider putting your prices up, because clearly if demand is outstripping supply, you're doing something right, and you probably need to raise those rates to price out some of the people on your books and attract more of the higher paying clients so that you can work less and earn more, which is ultimately always the goal in freelance life, rather than book yourself to the max every single day. You're going to get burnout. It's not going to be a chill time. So consider outsourcing or consider putting your prices up. On the flip side, if you find yourself without a lot of work a lot of the time, you might need to consider some more business development tactics, perhaps actively posting on social media to say that you are free and available for work, actively cold pitching the clients that you want to be working with, or approaching them on LinkedIn, sending them a note, interacting with them, and then eventually forming that connection, or just going straight to your freelance community, where that, if that be on Slack, Discord, Facebook, wherever, and just saying, I'm having trouble. Does anyone have any extra work that they can refer to me, or know of anywhere that I can go where someone is looking for work? That's how I would do it. I wouldn't go to job boards, and I wouldn't be applying for roles on LinkedIn directly. If you want to know why, you can watch my video on that. I go into detail about why they're not necessarily the best places to find work. But it may also be that you are not marketing yourself at all. And I think that's something that freelancers often struggle with, is feeling too shy to market yourself for whatever reason. I know it feels weird and gross. You've just got to. If you really do struggle with that, I'd recommend checking out the Anti-Sell by Steve Morgan, I believe. I can confirm that it was in fact Steve Morgan who wrote that book. Boreda, Steve, Diolch. And I've done a video on it as well, because I've done a video on fucking everything. So go and check that out and maybe find some ways that feel comfortable to you that you can market yourself. And there we go, dealing with the ebb and flow of freelance life. Some things for you to consider there. Because let's face it, there will be ebb and flow. You're never going to avoid it. It's going to happen. So just move with it. Accept it as a part of freelance life. And just be cool, yeah? Just be cool about it. If you have any questions about anything I have discussed here today, you can leave a comment in the box below, or you can find me on Twitter or LinkedIn, and I'll be happy to chat with you there. And I will see you back here in 2 weeks for more Kiss My A's. Take care and peace out.